Tell the feeling like I'm trapped in my damn mind. Tell the feeling like I'm rapping a damn lie. Tell the feeling like my life is a damn game. Nigga really wanna die in the night time. Only time I feel pain when I'm feeling low. That's why I tell it on my face that I'm down low. Only time on my mind when I'm all alone. That's why I'm never really alone in the night time.
Welcome back everybody, and thank you for watching KENAN KTV. I am Kenan, and in this video, I want to talk about a potential matchup between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Tony Ferguson. In this video, I would like to ask the question, what if Khabib, the Ego Nurmagomedov, defeats Tony El Cucuy Ferguson? How could he do it, and where would he go from there? I would also like to add on the 25th of May, I will be releasing my first ever merchandise. So if you guys are interested, that is the day everything will be online. Let's continue on. I think that without a question, we can all agree on that this fight is the fight to make in the lightweight division. We have already had Conor McGregor versus Khabib, but stylistically and in terms of pure legacy, the Tony versus Khabib fight has been brewing for years. The fight had been cancelled for about 4 or 5 times already, so it is always that feeling of not getting what you so desperately needed. Last year, when Tony Ferguson tripped over a wire and injured his knee, I was kind of over the fight already, but ever since the Conor McGregor and Khabib fight happened, this is the only fight that I really look forward to in the lightweight division. Obviously, we have two parties, the party where everybody believes that Tony Ferguson will win, and another party where everybody is #Khabib time 28-0, where they obviously believe Khabib Nurmagomedov will win. I have already made a video where I talked about what if Tony Ferguson would win, so it is time for the Khabibers to get their piece. Let's start off with how Khabib Nurmagomedov would win. Over the course of these 27 wins for Khabib, he has looked nothing but invincible. If a fighter could momentarily stall getting defeated, that will be seen as a success, and that speaks volumes when you're Khabib Nurmagomedov. So for him to go into a fight with Tony Ferguson, who is a ferocious fighter who never stops coming forward, who is willing to take a hit to give out to, never stops working even if the fight happens to be on the ground. He is a fighter with tremendous endurance, tremendous output, and a tremendous will to win. And seemingly, those are the right ingredients to go into a fight with Khabib. But would those ingredients be enough to defeat him? I would have to believe that Tony Ferguson versus Khabib is a 60-40 win ratio for Khabib. I would have to believe that the main key components in this fight will have to come down to the fact that Khabib Nurmagomedov has always been a fighter who always found a way to take his opponents down. And from there, that is his realm. That is where he can control all of his opponents. That is where the fight goes sour for all of his opponents. And against Tony Ferguson, I don't think we will see anything differently. I do not see a way that Tony Ferguson could go into a fight with Khabib and stall all of his takedowns. Sure, maybe he can stall and defend a few takedowns. He could do that, especially later in the rounds. Maybe in the 4th or 5th round where Khabib Nurmagomedov starts to slow down a bit, starts to fatigue, and pushing through on takedowns is becoming more and more of a grueling task. But depending on the fact that you could be the same fighter you were in the 1st round, in the 4th and 5th round against Khabib, that is a risky game to play, and that is a big gamble. But before we get ahead of ourselves, when the fight starts on the feet, how would it look from there? With all the improvements that Khabib has made to his stand-up game, we would still have to give the edge, maybe a big edge, to Tony Ferguson. He's a fighter that has a lot more tools, a lot more confidence in the stand-up department. And when it comes to Khabib, yes, with the improvements that he has made, I think that he will be a lot more comfortable and a lot more secure on the fact that, okay, being in the stand-up department does not make me feel as if I am out of my element anymore. And if we take a look at the things that Khabib Nurmagomedov does in the stand-up department, I would have to believe that a lot of people have been underlooking his skills when it comes to that. I think that for Khabib, when it comes to singular power shots or a quick 1-2 combination, he's arguably one of the faster, if not the fastest fighter in the division. Now obviously that doesn't mean that his defense or technique is perfect. He has his flaws, but every fighter has his flaws. But the fact that he can generate power and quickness, add on top of the fact that he is pretty unorthodox and it's very hard to get a read on what he's trying to do, I believe that with the style that Tony Ferguson has of coming forward and being more so open for a lot of shots, for example against Anthony Pettis, he was walking in with his chin up for example and was welcoming potential dangers. And against Khabib, I think that if Tony Ferguson can get past one big shot or a combination, I think by that point he will start to have his success. However, what if he doesn't get past a big shot or a combination? What if a big shot is the leading factor of him getting dropped and a fight being taken to the ground game? But before we dive into the ground game topic, let's take a step back and look at Khabib in terms of his defense. When it comes to Khabib, he really utilizes only his footwork, and that is a pretty good way of defending. Against Tony Ferguson, however, moving a bit too much will probably lead to you being backed up against the cage, and from there, Tony Ferguson becomes ruthless. Now, if Khabib Nurmagomedov can create enough distance, he will probably shoot him for a single leg and drive you against the cage with it, and from there, it is only Khabib time. So I would have to heavily favor the stand-up department for Tony Ferguson, but at the same time, it is not a game where he will completely keep his distance against Khabib and just pick him apart piece by piece. I think that there will be holes that Khabib Nurmagomedov can exploit and shoot him for takedowns, and I could see Khabib Nurmagomedov landing clean shots of his own. But ultimately, I think that the fight will go down to the ground game without a question. And how would it look from there? As soon as Khabib gets the fight to the ground, I would have to believe that the first position that they will find themselves in will probably be a takedown against the fence. Similarly to the way that Conor McGregor got taken out against the fence, I think that Khabib will use the fence in his favor, put the opponent's back against the cage, tie up the legs, and start to work from there. And from there, I don't really think there is anybody that could do a lot in that position. Even if it is Tony Ferguson, who is a fighter who is always active off of his back, always a dangerous fighter, I don't really think that he could do a lot and really pose a big threat. So in that position, I would have to believe that Khabib Nurmagomedov will have a lot of control time. But at the same time, as he did against Conor McGregor, he didn't really have a lot of output. And that may not be the best thing to have against Tony Ferguson. I hope for Khabib that he will be actively looking for a way to finish this fight and tire out Khabib. The more he stalls Tony, the more that really nothing changes with Tony, because Tony is a fighter who has tremendous cardio, endurance, and I believe that he is the only guy that can weather a Khabib Nurmagomedov smash/storm. And if he can get himself away from the cage, if he's not being pinned against the cage, and if he gets the fight in his guard, then the fight becomes interesting. We haven't really seen anybody with the guard of Tony Ferguson fight Khabib. However, I would have to still believe that he will be a bit too powerful and he will pass through his guard, go to side control, or even mount the same way that Kevin Lee was able to. And from there, it will only be a matter of time until Khabib finds a way to finish the fight. Even if he doesn't finish the fight, I believe that he will have enough control time and probably would have won enough of the rounds to win the entire fight, which will have the fight ending with Khabib's hands being raised, still undefeated, still undisputed, lightweight UFC world champion. Now, where could he go from there? Obviously, fights that could happen for Khabib in the lightweight division are fights with Dustin Poirier, a rematch with Conor and Al Iaquinta, a fight with Justin Gaethje, and that is probably it. Now, before we get to a Conor McGregor rematch, I believe that Conor McGregor would have to fight a worthy contender, and that worthy contender would probably have to be Tony Ferguson. If he doesn't fight Tony Ferguson, I don't really think that Conor McGregor would be in line for a title shot. When it comes to Al Iaquinta, I would have to believe that if he gets past Cerrone, he will most likely have to fight Justin Gaethje, and the winner of that will probably be in line right after Conor McGregor, or even the winner could fight Conor McGregor if Tony Ferguson happens to fight Khabib before fighting Conor. And in the end, I would have to say that he would defeat Dustin, he would also defeat Conor McGregor again, he would also defeat Al Iaquinta again, and one fighter that may pose a great threat would be Justin Gaethje. So against Justin Gaethje, keeping it really briefly, I would have to say that he will be able to get the fight to the ground, and from there, I think that we haven't really seen anybody test Justin Gaethje in that department, and he could probably get the submission on Justin Gaethje. However, at the same time, we haven't seen anybody be as ruthless, vicious, always active coming forward against Khabib. So definitely this is the fight game, but assuming after he gets past Tony, Khabib obviously, I don't really think that there is anybody really left in the lightweight division that could beat him, which will ultimately leave us with this: Khabib retiring undefeated. And I would have to say that by that point, if he gets past Tony even, Khabib Nurmagomedov is the greatest lightweight UFC fighter in history, and that is something worth of being proud of. Now ultimately, only time will tell. For now, leave what you guys think of this fight in the comment section down below. Who do you guys think would win in this matchup? As always, I have been Kenan from KENAN signing off. Later.